Hello and welcome along to HTML Basics with your host Robert Smith. In this video, part 4 of creating a two-column web layout, we're going to start to add some meat to the bones. Up to this point in the first 3 videos, we've simply created a content or a structure. So let's have a look at that, what it is. We're going to look at it in Google Chrome, and this is what it looks like. The first 3 videos we've talked about the HTML background, the body tag, we've inserted a number of div tags, and here they all are, like that, which has created our structure. We also looked at floating, which is a bit of a complicated procedure, but this is our end result. So to check all that out, that's in the first 3 videos. So let's start to add a bit of meat to our bones. Now this is probably the trickiest video I've made so far, and there's some complicated issues involved, but I'm sure you're right on top of your game. Okay, so let's have a look at our code. Here's our code with all our div tags that we've put in, like that. Let's have a look at that in design view. Now, because of my video capture software, I'm struggling to fit the whole page in one screen, but we'll sort that out as we go along. Okay, now let's have a look at the finished product, what we're going to build. If I go to this file here and I preview this in Google Chrome, here it is here. It's a website for the Fender Guitar Factory, like this, with plenty of images on one page. We go to another page and it's got a big picture of a guitar, and another page like this, and another page like that as well. And you'll notice it's got 2 columns next to each other, and it's got a horizontal navigation. And that's what we're going to build over the next series of videos. Okay, so let's go back to where we started. Now the first thing I want to do is the hard part first, which is that series of images on the posters page. So normally I'd start at the header and work my way down through the page, but I can start anywhere I like. So I'm going to start over here in this content left. I'm going to go to my code view like this, and here's my content left div, this one here. So I'm going to just delete that. That's the first thing I'm going to do, is delete that placeholder text, and then I'm going to just press a couple of returns so I get some space in here. It doesn't matter how many returns you put in here, so I'm just going to separate that from everything else at the moment by just putting a couple of returns in. Okay, let's get to putting some images in. So the first thing I want to do is insert an image like this. I'm going to insert image. Now inside my images folder, I want Fender poster 1 that's inside that images folder. So I'm going to go like that, open, and the alternative text will say Fender poster, like that. Actually, it's not a Fender, it's a Fender, and a fine guitar it is too. I'm going to click OK like that, and there's the code that Dreamweaver has put in for me. It's gone to the images folder, it's found the source, and that's the picture. So let's have a look at that in design view, and there it is. There's our first picture, looking like that. Okay, let's go back to code. Let's put another picture in. I'll do the same thing again. I'll just press return. That div's getting in the way, so I'll just press return again to get rid of that, and go insert image like this. This time Fender poster 2, and the alternative text will just say Fender guitar poster, like this. Very nice indeed. Hey, okay, here we go. Now we've got 2 images. If we go to our design, we've got 2 images. Now you notice they're sitting right up next to each other. That's exactly what we want. So let's do a little bit of shortcutting here. By going into my code, I know that all my posters are called Fender poster 1, 2, 3, etc. So I'm just going to copy, actually I will said that, I'm just going to copy that line, Command C, or that code like this. If I can move that over a bit, will it let me do that? No, it won't. Okay, so I'm just going to press return, and all I have to change in here is Fender poster 3. I'll do the same thing again, press return, Apple V, paste it in, Fender poster 4. That's because I named them sequentially like that, it makes life very easy when we've got a series of images. So Fender poster 5, I'll just move down a little bit. Now look at all that code, a massive amount of code, and all we're doing is cutting and pasting. One of the joys of working in Dreamweaver. So fender poster 6, we've got 9 images all up. Press return, Apple V like that. Fender poster 7. And 2 more, fender poster 8. And return again, fender poster 9. Okay, let's refresh that. Let's have a look at that in design view, what it looks like. Okay, there they are. There's my 9 images, or my 9 posters. And they're all sitting inside this content left div like that. That's the parent div, and I'll use that term a lot. Okay, so if we look at it like this, there's no spacing. It's all looking a bit unspaced and a bit unstructured. So now it's time to actually write some CSS to manage these images. And to do that, I'm going to write a, go over here, click plus like this. I'm going to redefine a tag. The image tag is what I want to redefine like that. And I want to put it in index CSS, which is what we've been doing so far. I'm going to click OK like this. Okay, now what I'm going to try and do is fill these pictures nicely, if you like. That's a horrible word, but inside that box. And to do that, I'm going to use that padding, margins and borders to do it. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to my box, and in the padding I'm going to put in 10 pixels like that and click apply. Now you'll notice the images have moved apart, so now there's 20 pixels of padding in between each of these pictures, and 10 there and 10 there. Okay, great. Now for a margin, I've worked these numbers out earlier. I'm going to put a 7 pixel margin, and I'll show you how I did that in a minute. And I'm going to click apply. It's starting to look good. But I also want to put a border, a thin border around each of those images. So I'm going to go to border like this, and I'm going to pick solid, and the width I'm going to use thin. Thin is just another word for 1 pixel. I'm going to make it a fairly dark grey. About that grey will do. And I'll click apply, and there it is. Let's click OK. Starting to look good. Let's save our file and let's see what that looks like in Google Chrome. We'll save that. Look at that. Looking very, very good. Now that's no accident what just happened then. I've worked out all these numbers before by working out how wide the pictures are. Now this part here is a little bit scary for most of the designers I know, but let's go in and I'll show you how I worked out how to do this part here. To do that, I'm going to need something called a calculator. Now, a graphic designer, a calculator is a graphic designer's worst enemy. Okay, but luckily what we're about to do is really, really easy, and if I can do it, I was away the day they did maths at school, so even if I can understand it, perhaps you can too. So bear with me here for this part. If you're feeling a bit squeamish, perhaps you might want to have a small Chardonnay or something at this point here. Okay, now how I worked this out was, I know that this content left div, or the parent div for all these images, is 624 pixels wide. So let's remember that, 624. And each one of these images is 168 pixels wide. I made those in Photoshop. So let's multiply 168 times 3, and I get 504. Okay, I've got 504 pixels of imagery like that, and I've got 624 pixels of space. So let's do that sum. So I'm going to go, I'll clear that, and 624 minus 504 equals 120. Now I hope that wasn't too hard. That can stretch the odd designer. Okay, so now I've got 120 pixels across here to distribute evenly. Now sometimes it works out fine, sometimes it doesn't. In this case it's nearly right. It's about 95% right. So let me see how I use this 120 pixels to make up the space. Well, first of all, we put 10 pixels of padding. So there's 10 here, 10 here, that's 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. Okay, so we've got 60 pixels of padding. So let's get rid of that and type in 60. Now we're heading for 120. Don't forget, so we've got 60 of padding, and we've got 7 pixels of margin, and that's this margin here. So we've got 7, And we've got two of them here, two margins, 7 and 7 is 14, that's 21. 21 and 7 is 28, and another 7 is 35, and another 7 is 42. So plus 42 equals 102. I also then put a thin or a 1 pixel border around the outside like this. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's plus 6 equals 108. And we had 120 pixels left over. Okay, so that's approximately what's happening here, and that's how that was worked out. Now we've got about 12 stray pixels here, and when we actually preview this, you'll see these edges aren't exact. But if you were to sit down and work out those numbers, a bit beyond me really. I find that very difficult to do that, and if you find that difficult, well, just use my numbers and everything will work fine. I'll just get rid of this calculator. I'm sure it's very, very scary. So that's how I worked out how to put those images, and where I got these numbers for this image tag, like that. Okay, let's move on. Now what I want to do is I want to put an image in here. Now here is one of the trickiest parts of the whole HTML process. I'm going to put an image in here, so let's do that. I'm going to go back to my code view like this and zoom up to where it says like this. We're looking for the header, content for class header. That's what we're looking for here. So I'm going to get rid of that, delete that, and put a bit of space in here. And I'm going to put an image inside that header, much the same as we put 9 images inside this content left div. Inside this header div, we're going to put an image. Okay, and to do that, I'm going to go to Insert, Image, and the image I want will be the Fender header posters.jpg, and I'll open that, and the alternative text will say Fender poster header, like that, and OK. So I put an image in. Let's have a look what's happened. If I go to my design view, look at that. What's happened is, now this is something, again, you might need another Chardonnay at this point, but what's happened is, if I zoom down or scroll down, you'll notice that this image here has taken on the same characteristics of these images here, because we're using the same image CSS file over here like this. This part of it has just inherited those characteristics, and that's why it's not fitting in the area I want. And it's got a border and it's got some padding. I don't want any of that for this image. So how do I get around that? Well, the way I get around that is a little bit complicated. So I'm going to go back to my code, and I'm going to use a class, and I'm going to just separate all this so it doesn't look so messy, like that. And inside here, inside my images, I'm going to put a class. So if I press spacebar like that, actually what I will do is get rid of that space and then put the spacebar in, and it should give me a class, but it doesn't. So I'll just type that in. I'm going to type in class like this, equals, and I need to put a opening quote and a closing quote like that. Now the class, I'm going to call this class, I'm going to call it header image like this, or header underscore image like that. And now what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to put a bit of space in there like that. Very nice indeed. I'm going to refresh that. Now I'm going to write a class that gets rid of all the stuff that these images have got and makes this a unique image. Now that's quite a complicated suggestion, but let's just go in and do that. I'm just going to click on header image like that in here, add plus, and it's going to make me a class called .header image. In other words, it's inside the header class, or div if you like, and it's a separate class, and it's going in here, which makes it a compound. Now we looked at compound in the first couple of videos. I'm going to click OK like this, and all I'm going to do is go to my padding 0, margin 0, and border, None. We'll have none. We'll go OK. Let's have a look at that in design view. And look what's happened. How good's that? Fantastic. Now that's all gone. And we have our header here like this. And we also have our images. Now that was a pretty complicated, and as probably complicated as this whole exercise gets. Let's preview that in Google Chrome and see what's happening. Save that. Very nice indeed. That's exactly what we want. Now let me summarize what we've done. We've done some pretty heavy lifting here in Dreamweaver here. What we've done is we've set up a content left div like this, and then we've put 9 images in it with using code. Then we've applied borders, paddings and margins to space it out nicely, like within that div itself. But that gave us a problem, and one of the major problems you'll run into when using CSS and HTML is that as soon as we put another image in another area, it inherited all of these characteristics. So how we got around that was we put another class inside that header just to deal with this photo, and we'll be doing that again on one of the other pages. Okay, so that's it. That'll do it for the first video. I hope you haven't got a headache. I hope you haven't got calculator-itis. But it's not as hard as it looks. It's once you've done it a couple of times, it becomes second nature, and the sums aren't that hard. Okay, so thanks for watching, and we'll put some text in the next video.